Hello everyone, good evening, and we hope you're all well. Welcome to your sixth lesson, and hello to you too as well, Mr. Jones.
Mulu, good to be with you today.
All right, so we're filling in for the guys who normally regularly teaching on Fridays. You know, we have, perhaps you do know, perhaps you don't know, we have a St. Petersburg Congress this weekend, so a lot of friends have traveled over there, and some others are still preparing for tomorrow because we're starting off tomorrow. So just in case you don't know, this is why we have a bit of a replacement today. So we'll try to fill in as best we can, and we'll see how we go along. Now, today we got the sixth lesson, and it's called Peace in the World. Might sound like a, I don't know, a beauty contest question. Peace in the world, can we really have peace in the world? And what's required for peace in the world? But we'll soon discover that it's not really a beauty contest question. That's a very realistic question, and Bala Aslan will teach us in his article, The Peace. If you have this book, that'd be great. So page 265, we'll be reading on that. And we'll take it from there. As usual, if you have any questions, please put them through in the chat box, and then what we'll do is try to answer them as best we can. All right, so the question, world peace. Okie dokie. Now, up to this lesson, you pretty much covered a few of the fundamentals. And in the development of the soul, I'm not quite sure how deep they went into it, but what we need to know is that the whole of reality, the whole of creation is one creation. And although in life we feel ourselves a little separate, and we feel like this is me, and this is my world, and my life, and so forth, Kabbalists explain to us that it's really not like that at all. And in fact, although it seems to us like we might have our own personal life, that life isn't personal at all. Life is a part of a greater whole, a greater system that we might not be aware of. And life is basically something that we're just a little tiny part of. And because we feel that our life is separate from the generality of humanity, and I feel like I have my own life, I don't really feel like I'm that connected with everyone in the world. What I feel more like is that there is this world, and I live in this world, and I have my life, my desires, my wants, and according to that I want to live my life, and I want to fulfill my life. And that's how we've been raised, that's how we've been educated, and that's actually how we perceive life. So the reason we've been educated this way, we've grown this way, is because we perceive nature as such, that there is a big reality, and I live inside that reality. And according to what I see, this is the situation. Let's do this for a moment. Okay. Oh, sorry, just bear with me one moment. I will just fix this. Okay. And for thousands of years, we've lived like that because this is how we perceive the world. But Kabbalists are saying, you know what? Although we perceive the world as something existing outside of me and me living in that existence, it's a lot more different than that. They're saying everything that I see outside of me is actually a reflection of what I feel inside of me. So that's a little bit hard for us to grasp at the moment. And because we don't grasp it that way, we try to run our life and live our life as best we see fit according to how we feel that life is. So today what we're going to learn is how Kabbalists teach us how actually we should be living in order to find that balance in life that will actually bring us what they talk about in this article called peace. And there's another lovely article in this book as well called Peace in the World. But peace is not necessarily just war and peace like that. Peace is actually our inner peace. The reason we have a lot of wars in the world is because we don't have any inner peace. So Kabbalists are trying to actually bring us to such an understanding and sensation that there is a way to attain this inner peace which we don't have at the moment, and that's causing all the problems. All right? So this is just a short little introduction to the lesson. And we're going to read from Bal Sulam, and we'll see how we go along with that, and then we'll see what kind of questions you have. Now, it's very important to ask questions, especially while we're reading the text, okay? Because the Kabbalists, the way they teach is in such a way that they want us to live what they're teaching so that we can actually come to live what's been written, rather than what we've been used to, which is basically to believe what we've been told. So Kabbalists have a different approach when they're teaching, and they say, listen, you shouldn't believe anything that we write. And that's a very interesting approach, because normally when we're taught something in books, in schools, we say, you know what, this is what we're teaching, this is how it is, so you should believe it, right? So Kabbalists have a different approach. They say, listen, don't believe anything we say, just scrutinize the text, and as you come to live that situation, you'll begin to feel that what we wrote was true. And that's how we develop what they call faith in the sages, okay, by actually living what they've written about and then confirming that what they wrote is actually the truth. And that's called trusting my teacher. So, we'll carry on reading.
Excellent. Yeah. Thank you, Mulu. Just want to, I'm over here with the questions. I'm sure are already used to how this works. Just want to emphasize what Mulu mentioned earlier about the importance of questions. And because this is such a, we can say that it's a new and kind of not extremely developed an aspect of technically really being able to feel that we're in a classroom with all these students around the world. Mm-hmm. And it's very important for us to understand how we need to change the direction and which way that we speak and what to put emphasis on. We need to really feel kind of feedback from you. And the only feedback we have, unfortunately, at the moment, technology is unfortunately limited us to basically text. So the more that you can ask questions and the more you can give feedback and the more that you can interact as much as you can here, we'll be able to provide you with basically whatever you feel you're lacking. Maybe something's not clear, maybe it's too clear, or maybe you want to leave the lesson a little bit unfulfilled, which is kind of the goal here. Actually, it sounds a little bit backward, but the more that you have a deficiency at the end of the lesson, it's actually a good result. You don't want to feel that you've left the lesson feeling, more smart and, more wise and about the world. Of course, that obviously will be a result just because you're starting to dive in a little bit more to the internality of things. But really try to dive into the questions, and anytime you have something that stops you, send it in, and then we'll feel that and we'll go with that.
Absolutely. All right, so let's interact. Let's make this interactive, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of things to learn here. So I'm going to start reading, okay, from the Peace article, and we'll see what Bal Sulam has to teach us, and we'll take it from there. So page 264, and at the bottom of page 264, there's a subtitle called Necessity to Practice Caution with the Laws of Nature. All right, so already we're thinking, what's laws of nature have to do with peace? But we'll soon find out. We can all plainly see that the human species must lead a social life, meaning it cannot exist and sustain itself without the help of others. Therefore, imagine an event where one retires from society to a desolate location and lives there a life of misery and great pain due to his inability to provide for his needs. The person would have no right to complain about providence or his fate. And if that person were to do that, meaning complain and curse his bitter fate, he would only be displaying his stupidity. This is because while providence has prepared for him a comfortable, desirable place in society, he has no justification to retire from it to a desolate place. Such a person must not be pitied, since he is going against the nature of creation. And since he has no option to live as providence has ordered him, he should not be pitied. That sentence is agreed upon by all of humanity without dispute. And I can add and establish it on the basis of Kabbalah and give it such a form. Since providence extends from the Creator, who undoubtedly has a purpose in his actions, since there is no act without a purpose, we find that anyone who breaks a law from the laws of nature that he has imprinted in us corrupts the purposeful aim. Right. So Baal Salam has given us a law of nature which imposes on us a social life. Now the social life is a very important aspect, he says, because if we don't go by it, we live alone and we are unable to provide for ourselves. So it's very obvious to it, right? So supposing if we were living somewhere, let's say we got sick and tired of society, right? A lot of people get tired of society, and a lot of people actually, sometimes you see they take off, okay? A lot of people who live in cities recently take off to far off places in villages, and they start to have a little calm life in a village somewhere. But even that is still a social life. So imagine us taking off and living, I don't know where, Timbuktu, all right, let's say, and we're all on our own. There's no supermarket, okay, there are no mobile phones. I don't know where to get my clothes from. And even if I did, would I have the money or the facility to get clothes, food, anything? So, justly so, we would have a difficult life. The reason we would have a difficult life, as he says here, is because we broke a law of nature. Okay, so law of nature says we should live together. And if I go against that, it means I'm suffering in life. Life becomes difficult. So that's already giving us a sign that, wait a minute, if I actually knew the laws of nature and I didn't go against them, I wouldn't suffer. Okay, we can relate that in that 1 + 1 = 2. So, although he's giving us something that we really don't consider and we take for granted, because we're born in society, we live in society, and we're used to society providing us everything, right? For example, when a baby is born, he's born into such a world, or she's born into such a world, that everything is pretty much ready, right? The diapers are ready, the dummies are ready, the bottles are ready, the baby food is ready, the parents are ready, everything is kind of ready. You know, the parents go to the supermarket, get everything they need for the baby as well, or to a shopping mall, or to wherever, and like everything is ready. Now imagine us being in a situation where all of that was not quite ready, and we wouldn't be able to really provide for each other. So we've developed in such a way that society has already become for us like laws of nature, just like a monkey who's born in a forest, lives in that natural environment and develops in that natural environment and is adaptive to it, and cannot adapt to living in a city life like us. So if we brought a monkey to the city, he'd think, oh my God, where am I going to find my bananas? Okay, where am I going to get my coconuts from? Just like if we went to, right now, a desolate place without society, we think, oh my God, where's the supermarket here? And we're in the middle of the Amazon and there is no supermarket. Okay, so we'd be feeling very much off balance, off tune. We wouldn't know what to do. So Baal Islam is saying, listen, this is a law of nature. We are created to actually live together and to provide for each other. So, although we don't really think about it, this is how it is, and this is how we developed. And this is how actually the whole of humanity came together as families, as tribes, as communities, and afterwards as as a culture, as a country, because we felt that, according to our common understanding, we need to be integrated in such a way that we, everybody does something and everybody contributes to society, and as a result, we have a functioning society. And that's how we developed, because we found out that survival actually only happens if we stick together. And that's actually embedded inside of us. And this is why over time, tribes turned into countries, nations, and then like places like the European Union and the United States of America and the Russian Federation. Okay, so we understood that we kind of need each other. And this is an understanding that life brought us to by educating us, saying that living on our own is really not possible. And this is how we developed. All right. Okie dokie, this way. So, up to now, we're all good, yeah?
Sure. Just to complete the picture, Islam also is trying to point out the fact that human development only happens within society, and nature, of course, pushes along humanity, as you've probably already heard. Throughout the study, I think you've already been with the Safa Marcus for 5 weeks, so you should know already that ultimately we need to come together and feel each other as one and really identify with what's outside of me as really my own. And that can't happen if you're by yourself. In society, you see a technology development, industry, all these sciences and everything that develops within a society, and that won't develop, of course, if you're by yourself. And so, as the program of nature wants, it can only that can only really manifest if you are part of society and are going through those development. Obviously, this is the ego, and undergoing all these developments within you as well, and eventually coming to the point of what's the point in life. If you're out in the forest by yourself, that necessarily won't happen. We have a couple of questions, but I kind of want to save them until you hit your peak.
Okay, great. Also, maybe you tell us who's with us.
Sure. So far, unfortunately, it sounds like there's a few technical issues. Some people aren't able to connect with us, and I don't know how many that actually is. But we've got people from all over. We've got Texas. I'm also from Texas, so that's nice. We've got Texas. We've got Somerville, South Carolina, Australia, Egypt.
I'm from Australia, so there you go.
Over here, you can hear the accent. California, Germany, also Israel, Arizona, and we have some. Another Australia, New York, some more South Carolina, Hawaii also. Obviously. Clearly we're looking at almost the entire world here, and now the Philippines have just joined us.
Okay,
that's actually, get a good idea.
That's actually very good that we're from all over the world, because we can actually see from this example here that the world has actually turned into one little village. Okay, so through the wires, we're all connected globally, and we're all actually studying the same thing, which is actually also connecting us. All right, the reason I say that is because even though we might be very far from each other, what we can all see around the world is through the connection, through the wires, through internet, that we're all actually thinking pretty much similar things. So if you look at the world today, the whole world is connected through the internet, and we're all seeing the same things. And we actually, through the things that we see, live feelings and think about things that are very much similar. So if anyone from Australia today went to Europe, or a European went to Australia or America or whatever, we think that, although the countries are different, we're pretty much living, similar lives, okay? Because we're all exposed to the same events, to the same things that are happening around the world, which we're all aware of, and everything that we're aware that's happening around us is inside of us, bringing birth to these thoughts, feelings, and sensations. So overall, what we've come to as a planet is this common sensation about the things that happen in the world, and everything that causes us things that we feel and think about. And this is once again something the Kabbalists wrote about thousands of years ago. Baal HaSulam, in fact, about 100 years ago, in the beginning of the 20th century, he said the whole of humanity is actually one family. We are actually in a global society, and it doesn't matter where I live, what I do, that everything actually affects everything. And although it's clear for us now that everything affects everything in our life, all around the world, so if there's a conflict in one part of the world, we see that it actually affects everybody. And Baal HaSulam wrote about that 100 years ago, saying that, listen, if something bad happens here, it's bound to affect other people as well. So it's very, very relevant for us to read these materials, even though they're like 60, 70, or 100 years old, because we're actually seeing it right now as it eventuates. All right?
Is this a good time for a question, or are you about to
Yeah, no, go for it. We have time today, so let's do it.
Okay, so I didn't forget about the earlier questions. I'm just trying not to interrupt the flow. So whenever there's a relevant question that someone's already asked, and I want to keep him in his same train of thought. So Susie from Florida says, speaking of peace, is it true, and this is what you're talking about, that if I make the necessary correction within myself, then that correction replicates across humanity, and that correction is then made in the whole? I don't know where that came from, or did I dream it? She's just trying to add to the question that she's asking, and I think it's probably coming from what you were just speaking about.
Of course, because like in the introduction to the lesson, we noted that what we see in reality is like we impact everyone around us, right? So I'm sorry, who was that asking?
This is Susie from Florida.
Susie from Florida. Okay, so for example, you're in Florida, and you probably have a family, relatives, friends, people at work. So people you know, right? So there's Susie. Let's say this is Susie. You'll have to excuse my drawing. However, it's just to explain the situation. Okay, so you're in Florida. That's a nice place, so you must be happy there. Okay. Now in Florida, what you have is you have family, you have friends, so you probably have colleagues. Okay. And then you have all the people around you, like your grocery store person, or your corner shop around there somewhere. So you have other people you're associated with. Okay, associations, let's say. Or you might have friends in clubs or whatever. So basically, one little Susie in Florida is pretty much connected to a lot of people around. Okay, so if Susie has a bad day, okay, God forbid, okay, so let's say this, Susie has a great day, okay, so let's say tomorrow, okay, so it's evening time in the US at the moment, so what you have is, let's say you have a really, really good day tomorrow, okay, so tomorrow morning you wake up, you don't know why, but you all of a sudden feel very ecstatic, very excited, you felt like you have this good feeling in you, and what's that going to give? It's going to give a good feeling to your family, all right, because they're the first ones to see us. They're going to say, oh my God, Susie's in a good mood today, she got up from the right side of the bed. Okay, so all of a sudden the kids are happy, your spouse or your partner are happy, or your parents are happy. So everybody in the house all of a sudden has a good vibe because you gave them actually a good vibe. Okay, even though they didn't have it. For them it was a regular day, Friday, it's the end of the week. They probably got some things to catch up on from Monday, Tuesday, and Friday is not always the best day at work. And that's great. You've already influenced them. Now your family, just like you, also have people on the outside. They also have their friends, colleagues, etc. Okay? And they've got you, because everybody's relationship is reciprocal, isn't it? Even though I go to work, it's not just me relating to them, it's also them relating to me. So everybody has this interconnected, reciprocal relationship.
And I think there is even research that said, and they may even have made it 5 people now, but everyone knows someone else through minimum 6 people.
Exactly.
Something like that.
Well, because we've kind of multiplied through the generations, through our connections, we actually are one big happy family. Well, one big family. I don't know about the happy part yet, but we will come to that as well. So let's say if you really had a really good day and you started the day fine, that first of all reflects on your family. Now, when your family goes out to their work or to their school and so on, they also take that good vibe with them and they reflect it to somebody else as well. Okay? So this causes, so Susie, living in Florida, all of a sudden, with a good vibe in the morning, causes a chain reaction. Now, they go to work, school, or whatever they're doing during the day, and they have this good vibe they got from you, which kind of reflects to everybody they're in contact with as well. So all of a sudden, Susie's caused a ripple effect that all of a sudden takes the whole of Florida by surprise on a Friday morning, right? And because in Florida, there are a lot of people from all over the world, right, let's say. So, I don't know, the Cubans call their families in Cuba. I don't know, I've got some friends over there, they call their families in Australia. I've got some friends maybe who have relatives in New York or California, and they talk to their relatives, or they're on the net, on talking on Facebook or whatever, and all of a sudden, little Susie in Florida, okay, who just gave a good vibe to his family, began to impact a lot of people she didn't know about. Now, if you think about it, all of us do something little, which then makes a little impact on everybody. So let's say I had a bad day at work. If I have a bad day at work, when I come home, that's going to impact who? What's going to impact my spouse, the kids, and then they're going to be impacted. So then my spouse is going to have a bad day, and then she's going to blow at somebody else because I said something that I shouldn't have said, which was like irrelevant to her. And then the kids are thinking, why are mom and dad all of a sudden having a bad evening because everything was good today in the morning, okay? So we see that our relationships are so interconnected. Even though we don't realize it, one little impact causes either happiness or grief globally. All right. Also, if you look at the news, right? So let's say we heard something really bad in the news. All of a sudden, the whole world is kind of upset about it. Okay. So all of a sudden, all over Facebook, all over the social media or whatever you have on the internet nowadays, all of a sudden we get comments, we get all kinds of pictures with text on it popping up all over the place, kind of like noting a certain event which has caused grief on us because we're all emotionally impacted, we're all emotionally affected by that. So the whole world right now shows us that if there is a bad event somewhere, all of us get upset, all of us begin to protest. Okay, so all of us feel anger, frustration. So this already shows us how connected we are, and that we shouldn't really disregard the idea that, well, I'm just little me, and what can I do? Okay, so all of us in life actually have a place, and all of us, if we look at the whole of reality, right? Let's say this is the whole of humanity, and I don't know if you can see these little squares on my screen, but I've got like a graph paper here on my screen. All of us around the world, 7 billion people, okay? 7 billion of us here are in somewhat connection like that, okay? All of us. So the Kabbalists are saying, well, we all live in one global community now, and we need to understand that because all our suffering is because we don't understand that. So there are a few things that Kabbalists are trying to teach us. One is our nature, which is called human nature, and one is the law of nature, which is the generality of nature. And if we come to balance ourselves, if we kind of like match ourselves to that, then we can find balance, right? So peace is very much attainable, first of all, if I understand what peace really is and how I contribute to that, how I'm integrated into that. Right? So according to your question there, Susie, your impact, okay, makes impact on all of us. All right. So even of all the people here now who are listening to your question, they're also influenced by that. So, and we're all reading from Bala Sulam. We're all influenced by Bala Sulam's teaching them. Oh, you know what? I look at the world now, and we are all connected. So everything needs to start with me. Okay. So from me, if I have that little change in me for the gooder, for the better, and then I can make that little impact all around me, and everybody around me makes an impact all around them.
So, of course, it's easier for us, and we can identify more naturally with examples that we can see in our world. Mulu just basically painted the picture, and I think we can all agree with it, that and we've seen commercials. There's a Coke commercial, it's this kind of this chain reaction kind of thing. You do something nice and it does something nice. That's just really an outer reflection of the inner connections that we have. There already exists an infinite network of interconnectedness and interdependence between us, and that's simply just a result. All these things that we're talking about, this ripple effect, you just see the results. And so I see there's questions here from Andres from Germany, which he also talked about attaining inner peace. It sounds impossible. How can I always be in a good mood? Of course, that's impossible, and that's not the goal of creation. The goal of creation and what nature is pushing us towards is for an inner correction, like some of you have already asked here from Andre and also Susie. It sounds like you're speaking clearly about inner correction. We know that this isn't some new age concept that we're trying to push or whatever. This is a science of the whole of reality, how reality is built. And when we talk about correction, of course, we're talking about how can I not want for myself, and that in itself is a correction. And if I don't want for myself, and I'm constantly going with the forces of nature and trying to be a partner with nature, then the result will be good things for other people. And if something bad happens to somebody, then they also know how to receive that as not bad from nature, and it's not trying to make me feel bad. But they also see that that's something that nature wants to show them as a way for them to and as a material, as a foundation for them to make a correction for themselves, to pass it on. And of course, the end result will be peace in the world, because people will see and identify with this new system, and they'll see the way that the structure is built. They'll see how they influence one another. That you wake up on the wrong side of the bed. You don't want to do bad to another person. What one of the first rules is, don't do to others what you don't want done to yourself. Where does that come from? It comes from the laws of nature. It comes from the way that our reality is built. So that should answer, hopefully, Andres from Germany's question, that it sounds impossible. Of course, it sounds impossible if we work according to the way that we think that we understand the world now. Okay, well, today I'm going to act really nicely so I can influence the people on the street that they won't want to kill my next door neighbor. Obviously, that's not how it works. So we're talking about, like Mutlu ended with, I start with myself. I can't correct anything outside of me, because ultimately everything that's outside of me is actually inside of me, and the correction is bringing what's outside of me back into myself by having the correct attitude, having the correct connection with it. Do you want another question?
Let's read a little bit more, right? Let's read a little bit more. Keep us focused on track here, so we focus on the topic. I'm going to go down a few paragraphs, and on page 265, I'm going to start with the paragraph that starts in the end. So, in the end, we all admit and agree that we are obliged to keep the commandments of providence, meaning the laws of nature. And we all admit that one who breaks the commandments of providence, meaning the laws of nature, should be punished by nature and must not be pitied by anyone. Thus, the nature of the sentence is the same. And the only difference is in the motive. They maintain that the motive is necessary, and I maintain that it is purposeful. To avoid having to use both tongues from now on, nature and the supervisor, between which, as I have shown, there is no difference. Regarding the following of the laws, it is best for us to meet halfway and accept the words of the Kabbalists that nature has the same meaning as the Creator or God. Okay? Then I will be able to call the laws of God or providence nature's commandments, or vice versa, for they are one and the same, and we need not discuss this further. So the Kabbalists are also mentioning here Baal HaSulam, saying, listen guys, although we've grew up with this concept of, some of us might have, in previous generations it was more obvious that we had these religious teachings, and actually religion molded how we were thinking and so on. Baal HaSulam is saying, listen, actually what they were talking about when they were mentioning spiritual things in the past was actually the laws of nature. So there's no this figure up in the sky like Father Christmas that we sometimes imagine. There's somebody up in the clouds and he's looking after us and thinking, oh my God, my children down there are suffering and so on. That's sometimes how they imagine God. He's putting it very bluntly. Well, not so quite bluntly, because he was actually in a community where he couldn't be very, very blunt. But we can actually say, listen, guys, nature is God, okay, and that's how it is, okay? So that's basically what he's saying, and which is actually very refreshing for us in the 21st century. Because if you're studying Kabbalah and if you're looking for something like the meaning of life, which is beyond what many things can offer us right now in terms of religion or spiritual teachings, Kabbalah is very straightforward. It's saying there are laws of nature, which you can call God if you want, if you're in that concept or framework of thinking. But let's just put aside our differences, because he's saying life is life, mate. All right? And he's putting it very nice and bluntly. So let's take a look at life from what we see instead of what we imagine and what we were kind of made to believe with stories. Let's read a little bit more. Next paragraph. Now it is vitally important for us to examine nature's commandments, to know what it demands of us, lest it would be mercilessly punish us, lest it would mercilessly punish us. We have said that nature obligates humankind to lead a social life, and this is simple. But we need to examine the commandment that nature obliges us to keep in that respect, meaning with respect to the social life. Okay? So by law we have to have a social life. In fact, if by nature's law we didn't have to, we wouldn't have done it. Inside of us, by nature, we feel we need to live like that. This is why we have families, we have this, by nature we have a warm feeling towards our relatives and family. Well, it used to be stronger in the past days, not so strong nowadays, but by nature.
Instinctively, yes.
Instinctively, we feel closer to them, or we feel closer to our own nationals, okay, in our own country. We feel closer to them because we have a common understanding, we have a common culture. So these ties are already embedded in nature. So this already is showing us, it's a revelation to all of us that, this is how we need to live. So he's now bringing into this a second concept. This is by law, nature's law, but how we're living in society, now on that we have to get in a bit deeper. So we have to kind of observe the things that connects us, how we connect with each other inside our society, so that we can actually see how peace is going to happen, if it can at all. In general examination, we find that there are only two commandments to follow in society. These can be called reception and bestowal. This means that each member must, by nature, receive his needs from society and must benefit society through his work for its well-being. And if one breaks one of these two commandments, like actions, he will be mercilessly punished. We need not necessarily examine the commandment of reception, since the punishment is carried out immediately, which prevents any neglect. But in the other one, that of bestowal upon society, not only is the punishment not immediate, but it is given indirectly. Therefore, this commandment is not properly observed. So, in the way we live in life, he's saying life is very simple. It's a matter of give and take, okay? So, this is how we talk also in life, isn't it? Life is a matter of giving and taking. So, how much I give, how much I take. And balance is there. And what he's telling us basically is this: listen, if I take something that I shouldn't take, I get punished immediately. If I do something really silly, I go to prison. Or if I'm in a relationship and I'm not giving to that relationship, but I'm constantly sucking my partner's or spouse's blood or whatever, well, what is she going to do? She's going to say, listen, you know what? This is over. Okay, and I'm sure we've all had those moments. Okay, so we already understand in life that in order to keep something that I get pleasure from, that I like or I want to keep or I feel good with, I need to really work towards that a little bit, and I need to be a bit giving. It can't all be about me, because then the friends around me, the people around me, my family, friends even will say, you know what, you're just being a bit too selfish here, and you're either going to have to put on the brakes and start giving a little bit, or you're going to have to be friends with somebody else. Okay? So society is already, by influencing us in a certain way, is already giving us messages that, there's a limit to what I can take. And that's obvious to us. Okay? So everybody is, nobody has a lot of tolerance, and the borders are there and the limits are there, and we're in fact educated in such a way that we need to act in such a way that we shouldn't bring harm to society, because on top of that we either get a negative social reaction from society or we get a negative social reaction inside of us as well, because sometimes we do something bad and we feel bad afterwards as well. And that's also nature showing us instinctively that, there are certain things, although other people might be okay with, that I shouldn't really do. Okay, it becomes obvious to me.
They're obvious, so that's what you mean. So the obvious part of reward and punishment, or we'll say it in that tense, is revealed to us. It's revealed to us when we do something bad. I'm going to get shamed for it. I'll feel shame from society, or I'll go to jail. That's obvious to me. Now, what about bestowal?
The bestowal, he's saying, is hidden. Okay, because by nature we're not really giving, even though in nature I feel like I am giving. Behind that, instinctively, by nature, I feel that by giving I might actually get a benefit from it. All right? So our nature is very foxy, very, very cunning. But this cunningness comes from an understanding that if I don't contribute in some way to society, I won't be able to live in that society. I won't be able to live at all. All right? So this is why sometimes in society we have people who go against the grain. So accordingly, when you're not giving enough to society, even though you may not be breaking laws at all, all right, you get kind of disconnected from society. So this is why we have sometimes a lot of homeless people, okay? Or we have people who are rejected from society. This is because there needs to be an understanding in society that I'm giving and I'm taking. This has to happen. This is also why we all go to work. We understand that if the farmer doesn't work and the truck driver doesn't bring that to the supermarket, and there is no supermarket, there's no food. So society already has this understanding that we're kind of interconnected and I have to do my part. Now, how much I have to do that part and how much I need to take and give is not clear. Because in life we like to take what we want to take. Well, naturally I want to take. I like to go out and take. But life is not really showing us the depth of how much I need to contribute. Because when it comes to giving, I like to do the minimal. Because my nature obligates me to work as little as possible in order to get maximum as possible. This is laws of human nature. This is how our nature works. Minimum effort, maximum profit, maximum gain. So because we're working in this mechanism here, how much all of us are taking unnecessarily from society doesn't really appear to be punishing me until society comes to such a crisis that it just goes boom, and then it blows up in everybody's face. And this is why in history we've had all these revolutions. Okay, the reason we have revolutions, personal or societal or global, is simply because we've come to an unbearable state where we can't tolerate that pain anymore. In life, we also make changes when the pain becomes intolerable. Until that point of intolerance, I'm still willing to go ahead with it. All right? And that's because we're not very smart about how our nature works.
It's concealed from us. So what you're saying is basically that the bestowal aspect of life, if you look at nature, we'll take a cell in a human body.
The giving part, let's say giving.
Part.
Okay.
He wants to give. What does he live for? Well, he doesn't have his own house, and he doesn't want a bigger house, a bigger cell, I don't need to go into that too much. I think it's obvious that the cell in your body, take any of the trillions of cells that are in your body, each one takes only what it needs in order to give. That's the law in nature. Take what you need only to sustain this bodily existence, and the rest you're giving. All of your energy is to supporting the whole of the human body. That's not clear to me. I don't feel that I have a whole of a human body. I don't feel that there's this huge system that I need to support, and I only need to take the sustenance that I need to have my body functioning correctly in order for it to work for the rest of society. I don't feel that. So what you're saying is that part is concealed from me. Instead, I don't feel that if I take a little bit more, I'm punishing myself, when really, from what Kabbalists and what here Bala Salam is saying, is that this is a law of nature. If you're taking something, if you're taking more, we'll say, than giving, then you're actually hurting yourself. And of course you're hurting the body, this human body, we'll call it. And as a result, you're hurting yourself because you're part of that human body. But that part is concealed from us. Why is it concealed from us? Well, I don't know if we've even talked about free choice up until now, but basically, it's for us to become aware and conscious and work towards that. It's not just going to be given to us instinctively, just like, well, it's important for me to care for my family. It's important. If I'm concerned for them and it's above myself, then I feel the reward. I feel good that they're in good hands. I feel better. I don't care if I work my butt off all day long, as long as they're healthy and they're sustained and they have everything that they want, I feel good from that. Start getting a little bit farther away from my family, I don't feel it so much. So that part's concealed from us.
Also, unless science had revealed it to us, we wouldn't really feel that our body is, intaking things that are not good for us. So, for example, we eat things that taste good for us, but everything that tastes for us isn't necessarily good for our body. Okay, and this is why I don't actually feel the cells in my body. I don't feel the organs in my body. So, if somebody hadn't really cut me up and looked inside of me, I wouldn't really care about my organs because I don't really feel my organs unless there's a pain somewhere. But as science reveals to us that everything in my body is connected, so if I have, for example, something in my liver, it's not just my liver, it's my whole body that has a problem. Okay, this is called a holistic approach, as you probably know. Okay? So life is very holistic, and it's not like, you know, Western medicine that we're used to. That if there's something wrong with my arm and I've got to fix my arm, no. If there's something wrong with my little finger, it means I have to fix something in my whole body that's affecting that little finger. And that little finger, the pain on my little finger, is just a sign that there's something wrong all over. All right. So it's good that science is also revealing it, because now we can look at society that way. If there is one bad apple in the barrel, the whole barrel turns rotten. Okay, same in society. So we have to look at how we're going to have to integrate ourselves into this relationship of give and take, which will bring balance to us.
And this, in fact, is the correction. The fact that it's concealed from us is the correction, that we want to feel the rest of the human body as part of us, even because we feel rejection towards that. We feel rejection towards society, that what do I get for it, that I'm going to bust my butt for these people that I don't know. And what am I going to get for it? Of course, the ego starts making all these calculations, and if you think about it, and you haven't thought about it until now, think about it, and then you can then come to the next lesson and see how many complaints you have about this whole correction of my ego and correction of the world. And that's exactly what these commandments are. It's not just something, you know, well, this is what God says I got to do, so you got to do it. This is the way that it is. This is the system that we were created in. This is how we have to work towards it. And because it's concealed from us, because we don't understand it, we think that there's a bad God and he'd be doing bad to us and he wants us to suffer. When in reality, it's just we don't understand how things work, and the correction is for us to come closer to the system and understand how it works, so we can find peace.
Absolutely. And correction, when Chris is talking about correction, I'm not really going into all these words that, you know, that might seem a little off tune. What do we have to correct? You know, at the end of the day, I'm created here. It's not really with choice. We're just born here and live here. But basically what Chris is talking about when we're talking about correction is that we come to an understanding. Okay, understanding that this is how life works. And life is actually, throughout all our history, is a process that's been educating us. And it's been showing us what works and what doesn't work. All right? So this correction thing is actually this inner maturity that we're going through that brings us to an understanding about how I need to be in order to find that balance. And this is how we grow up from childhood as well. As we grow up, we understand that life works in such a way that I have to kind of adapt myself to it. And this is also with respect to the whole of humanity and the whole process that we're going through called creation, which wants to bring us to a certain goal, which we're actually going to look into right now. So let's read a little bit more, and let's have Baal HaSulam teach us. So, from the bottom of page 266, if you have the book. Indeed, history itself has troubled in our favor and has prepared for us an established fact sufficient for a full appreciation and unequivocal conclusion. Anyone can see how a large society, such as the state of Russia, with hundreds of millions in population, more land than the whole of Europe, second to none wealth in raw minerals and materials, and which has already agreed to lead communal life and practically abolished private property altogether, where each worries only about the well-being of society, has seemingly acquired the full measure of the virtue of bestowal upon others in its full meaning.
I just want to stop you right here. I want you to listen, Susie. He's answering your question right now, the difference between corporeal and spiritual bestowal. So listen up.
Okay. As far as the human mind can grasp, obviously Baal HaSulam is talking about the communist revolution that the guys did, and it's talking about the Russian, communist era, when everybody was, in communism, working for the benefit of society, seemingly. All right. And yet, go and see what has become of them. Instead of rising and exceeding the achievements of the capitalist countries, they have sunk ever lower. Now, they not only fail to benefit the lives of the workers a little more than in the capitalist countries, they cannot even secure their daily bread and clothes on their flesh. Indeed, that fact puzzles us, because judging by the wealth of that country and its plentiful population, it seems unreasonable that would come to that. Now, he wrote this article when Russia was still, in the middle of it, in the middle of the communist era. So we're talking about 30s, 40s, all right? So Russia is still communist, so it's far from getting rid of communism, and saying, listen, even though they're supposed to be working for each other, and they have everything that a country could want, with all the natural gas, oil, resources, you name it, they are unable to even feed themselves. But this nation, okay, I won't go into that paragraph, but what we need to understand here is that even though we may take upon ourselves act of charity, okay, not just in communism, but also in Western societies, acts of charity, acts of kindness, acts of wanting to do good things for each other.
Wanting, that's the key.
Yeah.
They did it forcefully. They were forced to do it.
Yeah. Some of them wanted to do it, but the others were forced to do it. Is the reason they won't work, and even charity will not work. Look what we've done to Africa. In the 80s, I grew up in the 80s, and in the 80s we had the Live Aid, World Aid to Africa. Okay, so all the artists around the world came together. It was like this big thing. We're going to do this great thing for Africa, and people are starving there. We must help them. We'll save them, and so on. And all they did, with all their desire to help them, was bring greater ruin. And now Africa is mostly in civil war, right? Simply because we wanted to do good, but we don't understand what good really is. We feel good is according to how I see it. And if according to how I see it, it's not good, it's bad, but according to somebody else, that might be good. So we don't really have this common notion or an understanding of how we should be treating each other, how we should be helping each other, and what should we really be doing. So everything we've done in life in the intent to do good has basically brought us ruin, simply because we don't understand the purposeful guidance of nature. And this is what Bala Salam is bringing us to understand that even if we took upon ourselves, with all the resources and riches of this world, to treat each other nicely and to help each other out, just like they tried to do in Russia, because the guys who did the communist revolution, they were idealistic, basically. They said, you know what, this is the pinnacle of humanity, when we're all doing things for each other. Okay? And it's actually not such a bad thing. Imagine where everybody is doing good things to each other. It's a good dream, right? It's a good, nice fantasy. Okay? However, Bala Salam is saying, listen, if you don't understand human nature, if you don't understand the laws of nature, and through the laws of nature, if you don't understand that humanity needs to go through a process to reach an ultimate end, everything you do in between that is not directed to that end will bring you bad things. So in this article, the whole example here is saying that, listen, even if you want to do good things, you will fail, because it needs to be directed towards the laws of nature to reach to an end. And everything in life is a means to get to that end. So let's read a little bit more, unless there's something really, really urgent over there.
No, there's good questions, but you're answering them.
Okay, all right. And let's read from the top of page 268, just that little paragraph at the top. When, for example, one moves one's hand from the chair to the table, it is because one thinks that by putting his hand on the table, he will enjoy it more. If he did not think so, he would leave his hand on the chair for the rest of his life without moving it at all. It is all the more so with greater efforts. Seemingly a very small example that I take my hand from here and I put it on the table. Seemingly a very simple example because it's for comfort. But even that little thing, that little movement, which burns probably 0.01 calorie or whatever, is so that I can feel comfortable. And if that felt comfortable forever, I wouldn't make any move to disturb that comfort. So one little example says that everything we do in life is actually to bring us to comfort. This is how our nature is driven. We move, we do things because we feel we're going to get a better state than the current state we are in, and therefore we exert effort. If we didn't feel that, we wouldn't do anything at all. So this is in our nature, this is actually the pushing force of development, and this force in us right now for further development will decrease even more. We'll see in newer generations that they don't really want to do anything. They don't want to run around and do all kinds of silly things that we've been doing, because they'll see that, you know what's coming out of that anyway. Okay, so human nature is becoming even less and less interested in doing things to advance, because also we advance for so many years. So what? Are we happier? No. Are we in peace? No. We have even more problems. We have personal problems, family problems, national problems, global problems, all kinds of problems at all levels. So everything we've done in the process of our development has pretty much brought us to zilch. Well, even worse than zilch, because we're no happier than a person 100 years ago. Probably 100 years ago, a person would have been even happier than us. One little slice of bread and a glass of milk, wow, best meal ever. Today we have everything and we feel like we have nothing. All right.
That's good, because that touches on the point. There's a couple of questions, and maybe you can answer, a couple of questions at the same time. So I'll try to phrase them correctly. But basically, you were just saying now that all the suffering is basically due to the fact that we don't understand nature's goal. We don't understand that one point that you were talking about, that everything leads us to one point, but we don't understand what that one point is. And that's what gives us the feeling of suffering. And we wouldn't have even wanted to investigate what that point is in front of us, that nature's trying to point us to, if it wasn't for all this suffering. We created all these great things, we technology and everything, just because we thought we'd have a great life, and in fact it actually brought us even lower. Depression is the #1 disease in the world, and why? Why have so many things? Because finally, thank God that we have depression, because now we can see that there's something else that we need to be headed towards. So if you can expand on Mulu. Tom from South Carolina is saying, it's been said that he's good that does good, so doesn't that mean that it's only perceived that the punishment is bad? And I want to tie that in with Andreas. What he's saying is, but is the correct intention to follow a commandment because we want to avoid punishment and want reward? Isn't this the same will to receive?
Okay, so everything right now, is everything we're doing is in a will to receive, and that won't change. Okay, our nature is a will to receive. This will never change, because the purpose of creation, also touching on Tom there, although the purpose of creation is to receive everything actually that nature or God wants to give us. This is why we're a desire to receive. Okay, so God wants to, or the Creator wants to, or nature wants to, however you want to call it, it's good, wants to give us absolute fulfillment, and this is why He created us, or nature created us, as a desire to receive. So the question is this: if I'm not getting any pleasure from everything I've done as humanity in life, and I've come to a point where I'm like depressed, I don't feel happy at all, but I'm a desire to receive, and I can't kind of get rid of my nature, and I can't delete that. That brings us to a question. So we have to answer it like an intelligent person. So I'm a desire to receive, and I want to be happy, and I've done a lot of things in life in order to make me happy, and I've come to a critical point where I say, you know what, I've done everything to make me happy, and I've done a lot of things that I wanted to do, and I felt that I would get gratification, satisfaction, and happiness from, but I've come to a situation and feel like, well, you know what, I didn't get what I expected to get. Isn't that a great situation? That's a lovely situation, because we did everything that we thought was going to make us happy, and we've come to the conclusion, you know what, I'm not so happy, even though I thought I would be happy if I did all these things. So now here's the question. If I'm a desire to receive, and I need to fulfill myself, if I need to feel fulfilled in order to be happy, what should I be doing? Right? Because I can't get rid of the fact that I want to be happy. So what do I need to do in order to be happy? All right, that's the question. To come to that critical question is very important, and this is where life has brought us to. So life, through all of this process of suffering, has brought us to a situation, say, well, what was all that for? Okay, so we've been actually brought to, by suffering, okay, by the one that does good, the Creator, nature, is doing good to us. He's educating us, saying, listen guys, all these years you've been barking up the wrong tree. Let's find the right tree to bark up on. Right? And that's where life brought us to. So it's a good thing. Okay, suffering actually brings us to development. If we didn't suffer in life, if we didn't feel lack of satisfaction, we'd be like monkeys in the forest. Imagine them. They're having a good life in the forest, all right? Let's say somewhere out there where there is no humanity, because wherever there's a human, there's a drama for every animal. Let's say there's a nice little place in the forest. There are no people there at all, and all the monkeys are there living, you know, like in nature, in a calm environment. They're picking fleas off each other's backs and scratching each other's backs, and they're eating their bananas and coconuts, and everything's kind of like honky-dory. But that's how they stay. They stay as a monkey. So inside of us, we go through such a process that we want to get to a higher level all the time, and it's because of the lack of satisfaction, the lack of happiness, the increase of suffering. It pushes us forward. So is that a bad thing? If you look at it from the side of creation, it's an amazing thing, because it brought us to such a level, brought us right to the edge of the cliff, where there's no point of return to the state we're in right now. So the Creator is good, that does good. But if we learn to see from His perspective, just like we learn to see as we grow up from the perspective of our parents, and we understand that the things they did for us, even though we might have disliked them when we were children, was for our own benefit. And because of their, sometimes harsh ways, or sometimes, disciplinary ways, we actually came to an understanding that it was actually good for me that they did that. Yeah.
So just to clarify, I see maybe there might be a little bit confusion. We don't know how far you've come along. It has been the five lessons, I think, so far. So that's why I was really trying to push you, asking questions so we could kind of feel where you were. So just right off the bat, at the end of the lesson, right off the bat, before I even say anything else, we're not talking. It should be very clear. I thought it was clear. We're not talking about doing good things for other people. We're not talking about good. I thought Bala Salam kind of made that clear, that even though we have the best intentions, of course, within our ego, to do everything. I'm all right, fine. If I'm not capable of making the decision myself, I'll put myself under the authority where they will make me work for the better of society. And the point is that doesn't work, because that's not coming from within. It's not coming from, like Mutlu said earlier, from the eyes of the Creator. It's not coming from His thought. It's not coming from His desire to do good. We see everything, and we ruin and spoil everything through our ego. So what we think is good is not good. For sure, 100%, it is not good. It will not benefit society 1 gram, whatever, if I'm making that calculation within my ego. I have to connect to the higher force, connect to the force that manages and is this engine of nature and of all of reality. Connect to that force and feel what it is, see and understand what it is that its purpose and its goal. Connect to that and be a partner in that. Not that I'm making decisions and I see some person on the street and I'm thinking, well, maybe I should do good or maybe I shouldn't, or what do I do? It doesn't matter what you decide, it's going to be bad. So that should be clear, that of course we're not talking about doing anything good in this world. Anything that we see here is only for me to correct myself. I use anything that happens in this world as a platform and as a mirror, basically, for me to start doing these inner calculations and inner corrections and start trying to see reality. Start trying to. Not that I will, as a beginner for sure not, but I want to start. I want to try to draw this reality that I hear from the Kabbalists, that they say exists in a certain way. I want to draw that. I want to feel that. I want to be a part of that. Even though I don't, I want to. And that right now, as a beginner, that's how I start the path. That's how I start correction, because I start getting discernments from that. I start becoming more sensitive, and I start understanding really how to interact with reality, which is the Creator, how to interact and be, what do I need to do inside of myself? What kind of things do I need to do inside of myself in order to be closer to that? So I hope that's clear.
From what I understand, your previous lesson is probably perception of reality, right? So we had a few things. People touched on perception of reality.
Yeah.
Okay, listen, this is true, but we need to relate it in such a way that it's obvious, all right? And right now, like Chris said, it's not. So let's just touch on it quickly, and I'll do a little, in a nutshell, explanation. We have a person who lives in this world, and in his world, okay, he has all kinds of influences on him. Okay, Adam, if you can show the screen. Okay, so here we have family. Let's say work, health. Okay, you can't see me, but I'm sure he'll put us on soon. So we have family, work, health. What else we have? Friends. Okay, let's say clubs. Anything that really influences. Okay, so everything around me influences me, and influences me in two ways. I either feel good or I feel bad. These are the two things, sensations we get in life. I feel good and bad. So according to all this feedback I get from life, everything that's happening around me, I have a sensation of good and bad, and that's my perception of reality. So everything that happens outside of me gives me a sensation of good and bad. So I feel that there is something outside of me, when in fact everything that seems outside of me is generating a sensation within me. This is why each individual is living inside them. Okay? However, although I am living inside myself, I don't see it that way. Okay? I see Chris here, and he's checking your questions. So it's not like Chris is living in me and you guys are in me asking me, myself, those questions. We don't perceive reality that way. So this is why in the beginning of the lesson, what did I say? Kabbalists have written them for us, but until we live in them, we can't really believe them. All right, otherwise we'd be like religious people, okay? So what we need to do is, when we're studying Kabbalah, we have to build this approach. They're saying that everything I live is inside of me. And if I, in life, feel good and bad, okay, that's kind of true, okay? However, what there is here is, there is life on the outside and there is me on the inside, and there's this constant contact point where I'm getting sensations, understandings, feelings, everything that I'm living inside of me is through that connection with the seemingly outside world. At the moment, it's not seemingly. I can't go to my boss tomorrow and say, you know what? You're actually a part of me. Okay? Come on. Okay, we can't. If he's going to give me especially a bad day, I definitely am not going to see him a part of me. So what do I have to do? How should I take reality and how should I balance myself with it to come to what he's talking about in peace? And he's saying that's a societal job. It's not just me, but it's all of us together. And this is why we study in groups. Right? This is why spirituality is group work, where we interact and we build that correct interaction together, okay, in order to find that harmonious balance between us, in order to find out where all the nooks and crannies are, where we need to kind of like adjust and fix, okay? So until I start getting into that work, it's all going to be a little airy-fairy. So when we're studying Kabbalah, we need to kind of like fix ourselves from an angle, from an approach, okay, that I need to now relate to my group, to the study group, okay, to all of us together here that are studying. You know, start thinking about it as relationships between us that influence us. This is how we need to take a look at it. So the outside world is still not feeling that, so I can't relate to the outside world as such. But if you stay with us, hopefully you'll discover group work, and from there you'll begin to find how to adjust yourself within society, which is the group actually, all right?
That also touches on Oli's question, and where she says, well, I'm not exactly sure what you mean by state of sharing, but you said, and let Hashem take care of all of our needs. This is what Mulu just talked about now, where you can't just, sit in your house and expect to get your monthly salary or your bi-weekly salary and you're going to get fed because, I have faith in the Creator and God that, He's going to take care of me because I'm starting to relate to Him differently or something like this. There's a saying in Kabbalah, and I hope this is not too advanced, but you say, when you wake up in the morning, this is just a good rule in general to help you start coming closer to the correct perception of reality. When I wake up in the morning, I say, if I'm not for me, then who is for me? Meaning, if I don't take care of myself, who is going to take care of myself? I can't expect the Creator to do it because I got to go to work, and if I don't go to work, I'm not going to get paid. At the end of the day, I say, anything that happened, everything that happened, it was none else besides Him. It was the Creator. He did everything for me. He made all these things happen in front of me. He presented to me all of these images and situations and everything. And I went through those, but I need to relate to those. I need to start relating to those differently. I need to start relating to those as forces of nature that are bringing me closer and closer. Every little thing that happens, every single thing that happens, even though we can't understand it and we won't understand it until later, kind of like we don't understand what our parents did with us until later on. It's a similar situation. It's just how it's like every example that we have when we talk that we see in the world about how a mother relates to her children and family, all these different things, they come from spiritual roots. these relationships exist in the spiritual world, and they manifest themselves in different ways here. So this is how we have to start relating to the world. I can't just give up. I have to do the things that I need to do, but my job now as a beginner is to start trying to correct my attitude towards reality, shape it a little bit differently.
Right here. Okay, so today's also global crisis. Everything that happens, all the crises that we're going through, is simply because the connection between us is not good. Are we trying to fix the world? Absolutely. We are trying to fix the world. How? By fixing how I perceive the world. Okay? So to correct the world, to fix the world, to save the world is actually changing how I look at the world and how I see the world. And that becomes a personal perception. And then we begin to attain how the Creator is actually guiding humanity to come to a higher level. And then I'll see everything in life as towards the goal. So it's going towards the goal. So the objective of studying Kabbalah together and the objective of this lesson is actually how I can, and the previous lessons would have built you up for this, okay? How I can now start interacting with the outside world in order to change my perception and to see things correctly from within towards a goal. Okay, so this is the whole idea of this lesson. So do I want to change the world? Absolutely. But I can only change it, okay, if I change myself. So in order to change myself, I need the interaction. This is why we have this world, all right? So we need to use it for the right purpose.
This is the human society you talked about earlier.
Absolutely, that's right. So we need society. This is why living in a society is a law of nature. Otherwise, I would never even excel in degrees of human if I didn't do that. If I was living in the jungle, let's say, some people go and live in the jungle, right? They're sick and tired of society, and they live on a mountaintop. They won't develop. They will actually bring themselves lower to a state of an animal, because an animal also doesn't develop where it's living in the forest. If you look at National Geographic, I watched a really exciting thing, an interesting thing about monkeys living in India. They actually live in the cities, right? And because they're considered holy animals, people don't really kill them or anything when they do something atrocious. So all these monkeys, they've adapted to the city life. Because they can't find bananas on the trees, what do they have to do? They have to be smart about it, right? They hide in the buildings and they steal food from inside the houses, okay? So people have to lock up, people have to be very cautious, and people, for example, selling fruit on stalls in the markets need to be very careful because monkeys dash up, grab an apple and run off. Okay, so you see how the monkeys have also developed from that change in environment, survival. And if you brought a fresh monkey out of the forest into that environment, he probably wouldn't know what to do. Okay, why? Because he didn't grow up in that environment. So basically, we all need that societal influence to develop and to seek and excel to the next level. All right, then, we have about 5 minutes. If there are any questions, let's clarify them so we finish this lesson in a nice wrapped up way.
I just want to say that out of all the lessons that I've been a part of, it feels like the questions are all together. All of your answers are covering all the questions. It seems like everyone is like really kind of on the same page, and that's good. That's a good sign. So I'm glad that we're all kind of and all the questions are good questions. I mean, they're not crazy questions about things that don't make sense. Beginner questions usually, but these are, you guys seem really already kind of in the material and starting to understand it pretty well. You just answered this already. Gia from Israel says, we need to fix ourselves first before we fix the world. Am I right? of course, there's no fixing the world. It's only fixing myself.
Exactly.
It's the whole thing.
But this is the whole idea. I fix myself by using the environment, because the environment reflects upon me what I need to fix. If the environment doesn't show me the things I need to change within myself, I won't be able to change anything. This is how we also raise children, don't we? We raise children in such a way that, we teach them, listen, this is how you need to behave. If you don't behave this way, you won't have friends, you won't have a good life, you'll be suffering, and so on. This is all our education is based on that. So how we relate to life, how we relate to each other brings about the understanding of what I need to change. And this is the beautiful thing about studying Kabbalah correctly in the right environment, because this brings out all the inner discernments, the inner understanding of what your personal nature is, and then you understand what the generality of nature is, and then you got room to work here. You got room to understand yourself. It's basically understanding yourself and understanding life, and then clicking them together like a jigsaw puzzle. And this is all we need to do, and this is the only purpose of studying Kabbalah.
This is actually exactly what Rabash talks about. I don't know if you've studied any of Rabash's articles, but he has a parable about turning. You have a dark room, and the room is very dirty, and you can't see the dust, and you don't see the dirt, and you won't know where to clean until you turn the light on. So interacting with a group is similar to turning the light on inside of your internality. You don't even know where your incorrect attitude or your bad relations, where you think maybe you would have known because you were just kind of guessing and using this world's philosophies and trying to understand what you may need to correct. But until you actually start working correctly in a group, then you'll see it is clear as day, very clear where you are, where you need to be corrected, and where this correction will happen in your perception of reality. And this always takes place with your between you and someone outside of you, your attitude towards another, because this person may seem outside of you. We're learning that he's inside of you. You want to feel that somehow this thing outside of you is actually you. What do I need to do in order to feel that? And on my way to researching that, how can I feel that? What is this attitude, this correct attitude that I need to have towards him or her? Then you see where you don't want that at all, basically, and that's a little bit more advanced. We'll talk about that later. Did you say there was a clip, or no? There's no clip?
There is actually a clip, and you know what? We've come to the end of our lesson, so why don't we end it with a clip? Now, I hope we've managed to fill in the big shoes of our predecessors in this lesson that we've replaced. So hopefully they'll put you back on track. I'm not really quite sure the previous 5 lessons you've covered, although I've been teaching this course before. I haven't taught it for a while. So I'm not quite sure what you've covered up to now. However, I hope we've kind of like brought it together in a nutshell. But the important lesson that we need to take here is that this piece that we're talking about here is understanding our human nature and society, and how to balance this relationship of give and take in such a way that it's directed towards the purpose of creation. And the purpose of creation is to reach and attain the attributes of nature, or the attributes of the Creator, which are known as bestowal. So everything we've learned in our childhood or in the previous teachings about loving others and everything and so on is absolutely true. Okay, it's absolutely true that we need to treat each other nicely, we need to love each other, we need to bestow to each other. Everything they taught us when they were raising us as children is absolutely true. But what we need to do is we need to take that up to such a level that our acts of loving, bestowal, and contributing to society are in equivalence to the same kind of manner that the Creator wants us to get. So in life, we're all seeking one thing, which is love, actually. All right, this is why we have so many books, songs, movies, everything, okay, about love. And the reason we have so many things about love is because we never find it. So the Creator wants us to get pleasure from this connection that we build between each other, which is called true love. All right? So, and that will bring us to peace. And that's the whole idea of bestowing. It's not to do somebody else a favor, but through that connection, it's actually to feel that trust, the compassion, and the calmness and the serenity that people feel when they're in that common field called love, where in that true sensation we will actually feel the Creator as well and come to the purpose of creation, which is to live actually with the sensation of the Creator. So hopefully we will be reaching that as we study and advance in Kabbalah. And now we do have a clip for you, and we will end with that clip. And hopefully we'll see you at another time. It's been an absolute privilege. Have a great evening.
Good night.
Clip. Now we have a clip.
Clip. Hello, tech team. Are you in there?
Can we have the clip,
Can we have the
please?
clip, please?
Okay.
Little technical difficulties.
Is he? Okay.
Is he in there?
I hope he's in there. Otherwise, this lesson will not end.
It won't end, but it has to.
Do you want to do you want to check it out?
I'm gonna disconnect. This is very
I think
unorthodox.
maybe he's back. So we're just going to have a clip from the Rav. Okay, and if you can put Adam, if you can put the clip, please.
Hey, bro.
Okay, so hopefully we're going to have a clip. We apologize for that. Sometimes it does, sometimes maybe, he's gone to the gents or something, so the resting room. So now we have a clip, and all the best. Take care. Have a great evening. Hopefully keep your fingers crossed.
Climate change cannot be solved in one country, but it's got to be solved by the world working together. A financial crisis, just as we've seen, could not be solved by America alone or Europe alone. It needed the world to work together. Take the problems of security and terrorism, and equally the problem of human rights and development. They cannot be solved by Africa alone. They cannot be solved by America or Europe alone. We cannot solve these problems unless we work together.
In our world, we're trying to fix nature and human relations in many ways, and it doesn't work. Because we're looking in the wrong place. We're not seeing what's broken. Take the G20. Say they agree on a world government, one general bank, pensions for everyone. All people get what they need. No difference between Africa or Europe. Everything is 100% equal. Everyone is friends. No differences, no boundaries, no nothing. Everything's beautiful. Everyone cares for each other. The day after that, you'll see a global pandemic and a handful of people left in this world. Because you're trying to correct something without the Creator, not where the breaking took place. You know, it's like some poker player going into... Have you been to Vegas? They can't keep away from the table. You probably saw that in movies. They just can't. Those people who run the banks and other places, that's a real poker game right now. Bluff. Literally. It's all false, but they're still playing. They can't detach themselves from that.
My income is down and my bills are up.
Husbands are killing their wives and children, and women are killing their own kids.
Everybody is It's
feeling.
hurting.
Yeah, both of our teams are probably.
But I think we need
cut.
more empathy.
Seen a lot of friends, lose their positions.
Crime rates kind of gone up from people stealing, things like that. I know there's been a lot more notices in places I've been saying things like make sure you lock up your car and valuables have been stolen, things like that. It's possibly drive people apart.
As we are now sensing this despair, this global crisis, then the wisdom of Kabbalah becomes revealed in order to help us detect the place of the rupture. Without the wisdom of Kabbalah, you can't detect what exactly was broken. What you're asking is correct. Your question is right. Let's fix what's in front of us. Why are we talking about spirituality? There's a problem right here and now. You can't do anything in this world if you don't correct the spiritual breaking. Just fix the connection between human beings. All of a sudden, you'll see that there are no traffic jams, no problems with gas emissions or anything, and everything is suddenly balanced. Because you give nature back the forces that create balance. And those balancing forces are what we can restore through the human level. All of a sudden, you'll discover that all those forms of nature that are becoming extinct, say, all kinds of bears or fish or birds, those that are supposed to be restored are restored. Deserts become forests again, and so on.